Well, good morning and welcome to each and every one of you. I hope that if you joined us even a few minutes ago, you would have seen Noah Washes the World, the animation, but you'd have seen just then Jesus to the Rescue animation. I hope it's transported you into the vibe of Christmas on this 5th of November, Friday morning. But it's lovely to be with you. We are really grateful to see each and every one of you and for your time in being with us this morning. My name's Rachel Heffer and I serve as Head of Mission at the Evangelical Alliance. And as part of our partnership with the EA and Hope, we really would love to welcome, on behalf of myself and the team, and I'll introduce in just a moment, we'd love to welcome you this morning to just say we are so grateful for your time in joining us to look at our Talking Toddlers webinar, particularly around the theme of making the most of Christmas. So this is about the 5th or so webinar that we've been a part of since launching the Talking Toddlers research back in May 2020. And for some of you, this might be the 5th webinar that you've been with us for. So for those of you who are returning, who've been with us before, just a massive thanks and welcome back to each and every one of you. To those of you who are new to joining us this time, again, a huge thank you. You are so welcome here with us. We really appreciate all of your time on this chilly Friday morning, wherever you are. And isn't it great, again, the ongoing wonders of Zoom, that we can unify and be in one place at one time to really get our heads together around the ministry that we serve amongst our toddlers and our families in both investing in family life and the faith development of children and outreach into our wider communities. So that's what we're about this morning, making the most of Christmas, planning ahead. And our hope is that we really serve and equip and inspire and resource you with the various people that you're here inputting and the resources as well that we'll be talking about. And the breakout rooms will allow you too to bring your experience, your ideas, your creativity into this melting pot as we look ahead to the amazing opportunity that Christmas is. So I'll pause at that point. Just like I said, a thank you to you, but let me just hand to other members of our Talking Toddlers team. So as I said, there's myself on the side of EA, and we are thrilled to work in partnership with Hope. So we have here the wonderful Sammy and Rachel, known to many of you, but Rachel, why don't you introduce yourself as well?
Hi, so pleased to be with you this morning. I'm Rachel, as Rachel said, two Rachels, and I am the Executive Director of Hope Together, and it's a real privilege to be with you this morning. Handing on to Sammy to say hello.
Good morning. I'm not called Rachel, I am Sammy. I have the pleasure of working with Rachel Jordan-Wolfe at Hope, but with Rachel Heffer as well on Talking Toddlers. And not many moons ago, I did what you do so brilliantly. I led a toddler group. So I'm just really excited to be back on kind of home turf this morning with you all.
Amazing. Thank you, Sammy. I wanted to kickstart before I hand over to Rachel for a refresher of some of that Talking Toddlers research by just on behalf of us, for what it's worth, just saying a massive thank you to each and every one of you at this point in the term. I don't know about you, but I always hit September expecting that it's going to be a juggernaut that just hits you between the eyes and keeps on going in that upward turn towards Christmas. We know it's a really busy term anyway, isn't it? But let alone the COVID complexities that are still ongoing around us. So for all that you're doing with groups that are meeting back in person, for the juggle of all the logistics, for maybe some of you still meeting online, or some of you yet to restart, but planning and strategizing the way forward, we just really hope and pray that you know God's blessing on you, and just a massive thanks on behalf of the communities that you serve for all that you do and the amount of energy we know that you pour out into children's and family lives at this time with the ongoing complexities, as we said, which just make the job a bit harder, let's face it. But together we are strong. And I was reminded, just the hand to Rachel, of a verse in, where was it, Zechariah 4 verse 6, one of my favourite verses, but it came to mind this morning, which just reminds us, doesn't it, that we do it not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord. And we're in this together, aren't we? But it's his ministry, isn't it? And we just partner with him in all that we do and all that we, the ways in which, the creative resources, the ways in which we serve our families. So that's I hope, a helpful reminder that it's in his power and his strength. So a big thanks to you. But Rachel, why don't you remind us why we're here, what it's all about, and what are some key headlines that energize the what we're doing.
So just going to do a few headlines. So just in case you are new and it's your first time to this webinar with us this morning, we started this journey, way back. We did some Talking Jesus research. We did some mapping, practicing Christian research, and we were just struck by how many people say they came to faith under the age of 5. And we wanted to find out how many under 5s the church in this nation is in touch with. And so we did the Talking Toddler research. And we discovered that because of the wonderful teams of people like yourself, the church in this country is in touch with 74% of all of the parents and children under the age of 5. So that is just massive. That's 74%. It's so exciting. What an incredible opportunity the church has. And that's because together we're making a huge impact and difference. And you are part of that. 86% of the families of under 5s who come to church activities regularly, which is really exciting. So we've got regular contact with these people. It's not just one-off. And 55% of those parents who come along with the under 5s who attend our activities say it's helped them themselves to explore faith. So it's the child and the parent. They're both really important to us. And 40% of all of us who are practicing Christians say we came to faith under the age of 5. So it matters for the adult and it matters for the child. We can introduce children to God and how much he loves them and to discover Jesus. And the parents at the same time get to find out more and come on that journey as well. And great stat, 27% of them attend an annual festival. We know the power, if you like, of Christmas. We know the gift it is to each and every one of us, something to invite people to that they can come along to. So today, we want to look at that mission opportunity of Christmas. If you like, you know how amazing it is. We want to look at it together and we want to find out what's going on and what you're all planning or thinking. You may not quite have got those plans fixed. That's great because you might hear a cracking idea here that you go, I'm going to do that. So we think the wisdom is in the webinar. We think many of you have got some great ideas of either what you're doing this Christmas, what you've done in past Christmas, that other people would like to hear about. So we'd love to actually start with a breakout room where we can get us all together, where we can look at what we're doing for this Christmas, what opportunities you are taking. And then we want you in your group to pick the best idea. Now, you might have lots and lots of them. Who has come up with the best idea of what to do this Christmas the rest of us should hear about? Because we'd love you to put what you hear in the chat so that we can capture it all, what everybody's doing. We want you to nominate one person to feedback what they're doing. Now, we might not have time for even all the nominations, but we really want to hear some wisdom from you. Because you are the people who actually have got some cracking ideas. We've got some other ideas coming, but we'd love to hear from the room or the webinar room first. So I'm going to pray for us. And then without further ado, we are going to go into breakout. So let me just pray for us this morning. Lord God, thank you so much for each and every person on this webinar this morning, for how they are serving you, for how they are bringing forward your kingdom, how they are impacting lives, both of children and adults. And Jesus, just for their solid and faithful service of you, we say thank you. And Lord, I pray for each and every one of them today, that they will be just have that touch of your spirit that will refresh them, that they'll hear that call again, and that they'll know that you are saying to them that they are a good and faithful servant. Just thank you, Jesus, that they are harvesters in that white harvest field, and that you are working with them, and to see such a difference right across our nation in the lives of both parents and children, particularly of the toddlers. And we ask for an amazing time together today in Jesus' name. Fantastic. I am going to hand over to the amazing Steph's amazingness, who's going to pop us all into breakout groups. So you are discussing, Steph's put it in the chat, how you're doing and what your plans are to make the most of Christmas and Advent, nominating one person, particularly a story, and then we will try and hit as many of those in a quick fire succession as possible. Thanks so much, Steph. You can pop us into breakouts. Hi, that was great. It's fantastic to have everybody coming back in. Good. I'm going to look at that. I'm looking at the chat. So it's Ed, I can see. Oops. Ed Drew, Lovely. You've been nominated. No, so I've got to go back in the chat for a minute. You've been nominated for, is it basically the adventure of an advent calendar?
Yes. Yes. I'll just put in the chat now. It's an advent calendar that goes with a book of family Bible times, but toddler groups are asking us more for this. They're saying, this advent calendar goes to toddlers. If you type in this code that I'm just putting in the chat, you get 50% off with 10. So instead of $2.40 each, they become $1.20 each if you buy 10. Thank you for letting me explain that.
Thanks, Ed. That's great. Now we've got lots of. Oh, look, there we are. You can see it. Oh, take home nativity sets. Is this Daniel from room 5? Come in, Daniel from room 5. Your spotlight is now. Hi, Daniel.
Afternoon or morning, whatever it is. How are we doing? All right. Yeah. So one of our group members mentioned this idea that she's been tasked with. Wouldn't it be great if they could take a character, a scene from the nativity scene each week, and then build up the nativity at home? But obviously, sometimes this can be quite costly. So I mentioned, have you seen the toilet roll nativity scenes? That you can they can actually be really, really good, and you can buy templates quite cheaply. So I put a web link, which then has a link to a lady on Etsy that I think is about £2.70 for the template. It's a really good quality template, and there you can just quite easily make up the character, and then take them home, and then they build up a nativity scene at home.
So do they stick on it? They stick on in a tube loo roll. Is that what happens?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So that's quite exciting. I wonder how many of that we could have. I wish we had one to see, but hey, next time it'll be show and tell. We can't quite manage that.
If you click on the link, like I said, I'll put the link in again. There's a picture of it, and it is very, very good quality. And like I said, it just cut. There we go. Job's done.
Great. Good. We're going to have, is Charlotte Nobbs there telling us about basic puppets to help us tell the nativity story? Charlotte.
So these are basic puppets. You can use big paper ones. I mean, you just look at any figures. A basic puppet theatre. We will have talked to all from now onwards about babies that have been born to Old Testament people in unexpected circumstances. So Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebecca, all these people who couldn't have babies, who then had babies, so that when we get to Christmas, it's not surprising that there's another baby who's born. And then we tell the story with puppets. I've got the script if anybody wants the script.
Right.
With a narrator.
Could you pop that script to us, Charlotte, and we will pop that round to people. Yeah. And you know, when you say basic puppets, give us a bit more of a clue. What have you made them out of?
So we have made these ones out of actually a wired makeup. So you could do it like that, but we would say to churches who aren't as confident with that, we've just looked for figures on the internet that you would colour in and just expand and stick them on dowel sticks so that they can be in the puppet theatre. We've also found that if you Punch and Judy is scary because there's no one in charge. I mean, it's scary anyway, but there's no one in charge. So we have a narrator outside the puppet theatre with someone behind moving the puppets and doing the voices, because children seem to be a bit happier with a storyteller who they can see.
But how did you make the puppet theatre?
It's just a wooden box with a gap in the middle.
Fantastic.
Very simple. Again, I can send you that. I'll see if I've got something on that. But again, you can order them. But if you've just got someone who's handy, who's willing to put something on a frame that's fairly solid, you can do it that way. But you can just do it by holding without actually even having the puppet theatre.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. We've got so many more ideas are in the chat. So holiday activities and food, following a programme by Marcus Rashford about free school meals campaign, and working with the Charity County Council to host a Christmas party. That sounds fantastic. Let's just grab that one before we go. So is that Danny, KRBC? Can we find Danny? Danny, tell us a bit more about your Christmas party. You're muted. Sorry, Danny.
There we go. So over the summer, this scheme started. We were invited to take over from another local church, providing food and activities for children who get free school meals. And the funding has been extended to Christmas. So in the week ahead of Christmas, we'll be doing a great big 4-hour event with Christmas dinner, loads of activities. So we'll be able to do what effectively would be our crib service into that party. Plus a trail around the community, which could involve more people who don't necessarily come to it. But it's meant we've got links now with the County Council and the Gloucestershire Gateway Trust as part of this, which may well be an ongoing scheme. And it means we've had not only families who come to our toddler group and baby group, but also contact with other families because we have 5 schools near to us.
Great. Thank you so much. Have a scroll down, all the others that come in the chat. There's lots. We had Prayer Bear, who was there. Prayer Bear in our groups actually brought someone to church. So very excited about Prayer Bear. So there's lots of ideas in the chat, but it's time for me to hand over to the amazing Sammy. Sammy.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, everyone. Wow, loads of amazing ideas. I know when I was a toddler group leader, people would be like, wow, that's a really good idea you've had for Christmas. And I'd have to say, no, I've just pinched it from somewhere else. And I think that's what we wanted to bring an element of this morning, a bit of a hive mind. So all your ideas in the chat, we will kind of filter and put together and we'll send them out by email, and hopefully that will be one way of resourcing you as we look towards Christmas, which can be quite daunting because it's such a massive opportunity and there's lots going on. Now, we really want to focus this morning on the Christmas story. If 74% of parents of under 5s come to our toddler groups and are engaged with the church through toddler group, then actually what's really stark is that final statistic that only 27% of under 5s come to a church activity at Christmas. That means that our toddler groups are the place where most of our under 5 families are going to hear the Christmas story this Christmas. And so we in the rest of this session want to give you different ways, different ideas and resources to share that Christmas story. Now you might think, because I used to think this, Sammy, everybody knows the Christmas story. It's like wallpaper. It's kind of, it's so familiar, it's boring. I used to think that. But then I spent 12 years working for a church and realised I was so wrong. There are lots and lots of children and young people out there who haven't got a parent that's connected with church or even a grandparent. So they don't know the Christmas story. It's why one year when I did an art competition with schools and I said, draw a scene from the Christmas story, one school very ashamedly kind of handed their pictures over to me and Boadicea was the top one. Okay, is Boadicea part of the Christmas story? So we're going to start, because it's Christmas next month, with a bit of fun. And we're going to think about how well do we know the Christmas story? How well do we know it? And how well might the parents and the children in our toddler groups know it? So just for fun, a very, very low-tech Christmas story quiz. No interactivity about it. It's very simple. There are 10, 12 questions. As we go through each question, think to yourself or scribble down on a piece of paper, what would my answer be? And then we'll go through it again and we'll see how you did. You don't have to tell us how you did. Okay, so we'll just think everybody got 12 out of 12. It'll be fine. I used to do this with GCSE groups too. So see how you did. And so if I tell you that some heads of RE couldn't get 12 out of 12, hopefully you'll all feel better. So the amazing Steph is going to put our quiz on the screen. How well do we know the Christmas story? What's question number 1? There we go. So who told Mary that she was pregnant? Who told Mary she was pregnant? We'll put a copy of this quiz out because all the images are freely available and like copyright free. So if it's useful, we can send this out to you as well. Okay, number 2. Okay, where did Mary and Joseph live? Surely that's a nice, easy one that we all know the answer to. Number 3, What's question number 3? Okay, what did Mary ride on for that journey to Bethlehem? What did she ride on? What would you say? Question number 4, whizzing through them. Who went with Mary on that journey, on whatever she rode on to Bethlehem? Who went with Mary? And number 5, there we go. How soon after they reached Bethlehem was Jesus born? What does the Bible say? How soon after they reached Bethlehem was Jesus born? Question 6. Told you it was quick. We're already halfway through. What was the weather like? We did a little bit of our own weather forecast as it was a cold and frosty morning here, a bit like in Good King Wenceslas. What about for Mary and Joseph when Jesus was born? What was the weather like? Question 7. What sort of building was Jesus born in? Surely our nativity plays tell us that one. Question number 8. What part did the innkeeper play in the story? Question number 9. Do we know what animals gathered around the manger? And how about question 10? How many wise men were there? Last 2 questions, we're nearly there. Number 11. Do we know how soon after Jesus' birth did the wise men arrive? And the last question, still on these wise men, do we know how they travelled? How did they get to see Jesus? Okay, we're not taking this way too seriously, so if you've got any gaps, don't worry. Steph, can we go back to the beginning and we'll just go through the answers? So these answers are based on what the Bible tells us. But one of the things we have to remember with the families in our toddler groups is that the Bible is probably not their main reference point for the Christmas story. Christmas cards and decorations and school nativity plays, okay, a la tea towel on head, that's their reference point. So their answers might be quite different to yours. Who told Mary she was pregnant? Luke tells us it was the angel Gabriel. It's not a trick question. So if you said the angel or angel Gabriel, that's right. Number 2, where did Mary and Joseph live? The Bible's quite clear. They lived in Nazareth. Again, straightforward, no trick questions. Number 3, how did they get to Bethlehem? We don't know. We don't know. Luke just says that they went. No donkey is mentioned in the Christmas story. That's your nativity plays and your Christmas cards. It's likely, it was a likely form of transport, but it's not in the Bible. Number 4.
Can I chip in? In our group, Kat, hello. Oh, let me put my face on. Oh no, it's already on.
Yeah, I won't see you, Kat, because we're screen sharing. I can hear you,
of course.
I can't see you.
That's fine. In our group, someone said that one year, Dad ended up having to play Joseph and the donkey, and it got me thinking that where we assume a donkey, maybe Joseph was the donkey carrying Mary some of the way. Sorry.
Maybe.
Just thought I'd throw that in there if it adds any twists.
It'll be in my mind. Whenever we see a donkey now in the nativity play, it might be, well, Joseph might have had to carry her. Okay, number 4, who went with Mary? We know that is Joseph. The Bible does say that. Number 5, how soon after they reached Bethlehem was Jesus born? Again, our nativity plays make us think, it was instantaneous. Luke just says while they were there, the time came for the baby to be born. Okay, it wasn't literally the night they arrived. Number 6, what was the weather like? Oh, we don't see that in nativity plays. But Luke does tell us that the shepherds were out in the fields, and we know the shepherds would only have been out in the fields while there was grass for the sheep to feed on. So we think it was quite nice weather. Number 7, what sort of building was Jesus born in? Well, there's no stable mentioned, is there? There's a manger, and that's where we get the idea, well, maybe it was a stable from, but it could have been a cave. So we don't know. We just know that Jesus was put in a manger because Luke says there was no room for them, no place at the inn. Number 8, what part did the innkeeper play in the story? Again, Luke says there's no place at the inn, but there's no innkeeper mentioned. But if you're like me, when you're running a nativity play, it's a very useful extra role. Stop children feeling left out. Number 9, do we know what animals were gathered around the manger? Again, we've seen them from the nativity plays, haven't we? But the Bible doesn't say. So the ox and ass that are lowing in the away in a manger, that's just a nice Victorian idea. Could have happened, but the Bible doesn't say. Number 10, how many wise men were there? Okay, Matthew talks about Magi coming from the east. He doesn't say how many. We think 3 because there were 3 gifts, but there could have been more than 3. It's very likely coming from the east. They travelled in a huge caravan, a great big party of people. Number 11, these wise men, however many there were, how soon after the birth did they arrive? Matthew just says, after Jesus was born, they followed the star. And on coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary. So some people I know do get a bit precious about putting wise men in a nativity scene. But we know it makes for a good nativity play. It's what people expect. And then last one, number 12, how did they travel? Again, Matthew doesn't tell us how they travelled. He just says they came from the east. We expect it to be a camel because that was a popular form of transport. So we know that telling the Christmas story in our toddler groups is massively important. I used to do it as a nativity, but I also wanted to make sure that I tried to create another opportunity. I was in a breakout room. We were talking about crib services. So my last top tip is if you have a crib service, it's great to signpost the crib service as another opportunity to tell the Christmas story. But my experience was I had to build a bridge to it. Okay, if I'd got lots of people in my toddler group from the community coming into church on Christmas Eve to the crib story, sometimes it's a step too far. And I had to do something in the community first, whether that was a trail like Baby Jesus Rocks, we talked about that, or finding nativity characters, we talked about that. I even ran a world record nativity scene attempt one year. But for me, it was signposting something in the community that people from the school and the toddler group and the church could all join in together was an easier first base, first invitation, and then the crib service rather than go direct to the crib service. We're going to hand over now to Rachel Heffer, who's going to introduce the amazing Cindy to us. Cindy has got another way, a resource she's produced that helps to share the Christmas story with children and other Bible stories too. Rachel, I'm handing over to you.
Thank you, Sammy. Well, I don't know how you scored on that quiz, but I didn't do too well. But if you're like me, you're in good company. Like I said, part of our heart of this particular webinar is to really look at those creative resources through which, as Sammy said, we can really engage people in actually getting to know the heart of the Christmas story. So I'm really thrilled that today and coming up in these next couple of slots, we've got 2 amazingly creative people who will share some of their heart and vision and strategy and ideas for how you too, through your toddler group, through your ministry, would be able to actually really help people connect into the reality of the Christmas story, and not just the Christmas story, but many other Bible stories as well. So as Sammy said, I'm thrilled to welcome our first guest, which is a good friend and a wonderful all-round person, Cindy Dix. Cindy, morning. Nice to see you. How are you today?
Morning, everyone. I'm very well, thanks. You?
Brilliant. Yes, great. Thank you. Cindy, we're so pleased to have you with us today. You are, as I well know, a very talented artist. You live here in Ely in Cambridgeshire, similar to me, and Cindy and I are at the same church. Cindy, the reason we've asked you to come and join us today is because in many different aspects of your artistry over the last little while or year or so, you've created an amazing character that we see around you just now. So as we think about this really important area of how do we really get to expose the brilliance, the reality, the truth of not just the Christmas story, but equally Bible stories. Tell us a little bit about this character, Matthew Mouse, that we see to the side of you. Who is he? Why have you created him?
Well, Matthew Mouse is he's a little. First of all, where it came from is in lockdown, the first lockdown that we had. I noticed that the kids obviously weren't coming and joining into Zoom, and also my husband works with Sunday school, and we noticed that a lot of the traditional Sunday school, the Bible stories, they didn't know the Bible stories like we did when we were little. So I decided that if the kids couldn't come to church, I would go there and I would tell the Bible stories. So what I did was Matthew Mouse came up, and he's called Matthew because Matthew, the disciple in the Bible, was known for accurately telling stories of Jesus. And so that's why he's Matthew. And Matthew Mouse was born in Ely Cathedral and between the pews. And he found out one day that he can hop through the Bible pages and he witnesses the story. So he gets to meet, when he tells the stories, he gets to meet the characters, he gets to be at the events, the things that happen, and then he writes them in a letter to the kids. And it's at the moment it's on a subscription basis. So every month the kids get I don't know if this is going to show up, an envelope addressed to them with his own stamp and everything, and there's letters in each envelope that are fully illustrated, and a gift and whatnot that goes along with the story. So that's what's been happening for the last year. I've been sending them out, and most of this year's Bible stories have been of the Old Testament, because I decided that it's a little bit tricky to bring Jesus in 1 week and then he disappears for 1 month and he disappears for the next month's story. So next year we'll concentrate from Christmas now, we're going to concentrate on the whole life of Jesus over the next 12 months. But for Christmas, I decided to do something special this year for all the toddler groups and basically anybody who needs it.
Okay, tell us a little bit more about that then, because obviously today, like I said, our heart is to really serve and equip lots of toddler leaders with capturing the identity of Matthew Mouse. And I've seen him too. I can see jumps to life off the page, really engaging for children, but also for adults. And we recognise that many grown-ups and carers in our communities don't always know the Christmas story or the Bible stories as well. So tell us a little bit more about actually how are you going to captivate the hearts and the imaginations of children, particularly around the Christmas story. What's your plan?
Well, what I've done is when I write the Matthew Mouse letters, the language in them, first of all, is easy to understand. It's easy to read. Obviously, a lot of the children can't read themselves, but it's easy enough for parents, carers to read, which works on both levels, because now suddenly you might have children that are your parents or carers that don't know the stories of Jesus, reading them, or the stories of the Bible, reading them, and not only the kids hearing them, but they're hearing them because they're reading them themselves. Like I say, it's very easy English. We don't use any churchy language, so that anyone, whether they've ever been to church or not, can understand the story and what happened and how it worked. But I keep it as accurate as I can to the Bible story, to the actual Bible. So this year for Christmas, I wrote the Christmas story last year, and it was in a cave and there were stickers that went out. But this year, my idea is to give away as many letters. So you would be able to message me and get letters ready sealed in their envelopes for anybody to take home. So you can have them at in the play group or a church, or if you have an outreach or shoebox, the shoeboxes that are going out, the letters can go in the shoeboxes, or they can go to just be given to the kids or whatever, with the idea that they can then be read to the kids as the Bible story, as the Christmas story. And then there's a whole website that attaches to that people can go and get other letters, or next year subscribe to Matthew Mouse, either 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, ongoing, whatever suits anybody, whatever you'd like to do. But that's what I'm doing for Christmas this year, is as many church groups want it, it's there, and it's there as they'll be free of charge or for a donation helping towards the printing. But I'd like to be able to get the Christmas story out as much as possible.
Amazing, Cindy. So it sounds like from what you're saying, actually, this could be used in a multiple of ways. It could be used as to serve a toddler group leader for something that they could have in their hand. They could read out to a group in a crib service or whatever. But equally, like you said, it could be something that could be bought by a church or by a toddler group to actually then be gifted to the families, the carers that come along as a Christmas gift that goes to children. But equally, you said, if somebody liked it, and this is the subscription that goes during the year, so they'd not only receive the Christmas story, but then the follow-on Bible stories that would take them on that journey that goes beyond, obviously, December and beyond Christmas. Is that right?
That's correct. And I mean, on the website, the website's fairly new, so not everything is on there, but there's going to be, everything's printable and downloadable. So that's because I originally did this just for the UK because of the postage around the world. But I mean, if you hear my accent, a lot of South Africans want it. So I've now done it as a downloadable, so people can just go in, download, and share it as much as they want. And then also on the website, there's all the little worksheets, and there's going to be cards on there, and everything's downloadable, printable, and can be shared and used as often as needed.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Cindy. Appreciate you sharing the heart, the concept. I think we've got a few slides, so maybe we could just show some of those images. But Cindy, as those come up, tell us, from those that you've seen who've already engaged with Matthew Mouse, what's been some of the responses from children, from adults as well? Who's it reached, and what's been the feedback so far?
Well, initially, I thought that Matthew Mouse was just for children. But as it's been growing and more people have heard about it, I've got quite a few kids that are on it and are really enjoying it. I've also got a fair amount of elderly people that have joined it because getting the physical letter through the post every month, they get really excited that they we don't often get real letters anymore other than bills. So it's nice to get something that's not a bill. I've got one church group where the lady has subscribed, and she reads out the letter to the little one, to the toddlers, once a month as it arrives. And also I've been sending Matthew Mouse letters personally. I send out a pack to Bethesda in Sierra Leone, to a home there for children that would never have ever received a letter personally addressed to themselves. Again, telling the story, and English is not their first language, so because of the way the English is written, they can understand it. So Matthew Mouse has grown more than I expected. Another young lady has signed up for it because she's in her early 20s, but she's a new Christian. And she said to me, and she's also, I think Spanish is her main home language. And she said to me, reading the Bible she doesn't understand it. So the stories are accurate to the Bible, but they're easy to read. And then also I use a lot of, so although the stories are for children, because I know adults will be reading them. For example, one of my stories with the spies, Rahab and the spies, one of the spies is called Sly Spy, and he likes his milkshakes shaken, not stirred. So for an adult reading it, will get the connection to a James Bond spy. Kids won't, but he's just a cute spy. So that's how Matthew is telling his stories.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for sharing that. We saw that the website. We've heard a little bit about, again, the heart behind it. Please, if from what Cindy shared, if you feel that actually Matthew Mouse can help serve your toddler group, your families, then all the details are there. We'll send out the slides and the web links to you, to everyone, along with the other resource links. But in the meantime, Cindy, thanks so much for sharing. We pray blessing on you and Matthew Mouse and all your creativity, and pray it will have wide reach this Christmas and well beyond. So thanks so much for sharing. I'm going to hand over to Sammy now, who's going to introduce our next guest.
So Rachel was introducing Cindy, who is a friend of hers, and I have the great pleasure of introducing a friend of mine, and she's called Rhiannon. She's the Children and Family Leads at Romsey Abbey. So she runs toddler groups and she works with schools and also in the building and in the community. And she's a pioneer. So a pioneer is someone who breaks new ground. So Rhiannon is breaking new ground with young families in this really historic building that is Romsey Abbey in Hampshire. So Rhiannon, can we find you? Can you say hello to us?
You can hear me. However, I've got a notice from Zoom saying that it's unable to detect a camera. And I'm thinking that the milk that was in my bag has possibly leaked and affected the camera. So it may be, I'm just trying to tinker with it a bit and see if I can do anything, but it really doesn't want to.
It might also be, Rhiannon, because I know you've moved from first thing into your church building, and if your bandwidth in church is less.
Yeah, no, I'm not in the kitchen. I am in the office because I couldn't get on at all in the kitchen, which we don't really know why.
Don't worry about the visuals.
It's a podcast.
And we can build a picture in our minds as you speak. So tell us a bit about yourself, Rhiannon, and how do you engage families with the Christmas story and make the most of this opportunity?
Like most of you, I run a toddler group. We actually have 3 toddler groups across the week for the Abbey, and they run 2 of those are in our main church hall, and the other one is at our daughter church, which is a very, very different context. I am somebody who personally absolutely hates Christmas. Am I alone in that? If you also kind of don't really like Christmas, can you give me a wave? Oh, yes, my people. Oh, it's so good to see you. I struggle with Christmas, like for historic reasons, but also because it does seem like there are 2 Christmases that happen these days. And one of those is a faith Christmas, and we know about that. We are well educated on a faith Christmas, but there's also the secular Christmas, and there doesn't seem to be that much in common between the secular Christmas and the faith Christmas. And the mission is always to kind of be bridging that gap. And I have kind of 2 to 3 main strategies that I'm going to be using this year with Christmas and toddler group. The first one we will be starting just after Remembrance, and that is birth stories. I wonder how many of you still actually kind of enjoy the story of how they were born. If you recognize that thought, give me a nod. I love the story of my mum in the middle of summer. I was born in summer, walking through the woods with her mum, and my mum was in her maternity dress, and a wood ant fell off the tree down the back of my mum's maternity dress and bit her. And to me, that's just a cracking detail. And I think everybody's got these, and it doesn't start too young. And essentially, what we're doing at Christmas is we are telling a birth story. And so we start with building up the idea of birth stories. And although many people have got like memory books, which I had brought down to show you before my camera didn't work, they have got memory books. What I'm going to be doing is creating just a leaflet to fill in with some details and encouraging parents to talk to toddlers about their birth story. They may feel like they're too young, they're too little to really take it on board, but these things have been told to us forever. And this is how it starts. So we start off by thinking about our own birth stories. We are then taking that to a new context. Perfect. Well done, Jen. Keep telling them, keep adding detail. It's a beautiful thing. We are moving that on to thinking about Jesus's birth story. And that, of course, begins with a journey. And so having done that, we are going to have a transport week. And as many of you know, toddlers love transport, whether it's trains or cars or push along things or ride on things. So we have a week where they will be got out. All of the transport toys will be got out. All of the crafts will be transporty, and we will be thinking about transport. And then we are going to have our cardboard box week. And I know, is anybody here on 1277 on Facebook? So somebody mentioned it the other week, a cardboard box week. And this is something that I've done a couple of times a year for a few years. It's a very, very easy week to do for toddlers. And it's a great treat just to have a load of cardboard boxes and basically say, go on, toddlers, have at it, cardboard boxes. But this time, we're going to be slightly more structured because we're going to be making a town with cardboard boxes. We're going to be journeying through the town. And, oh, yeah, no, that's a good question. I'll come back to that later, Charlotte. We'll be journeying through the town, and we will then start singing our Christmas songs. The week after that, we have our nativity, our dress up nativity. We have got a huge stash of dressing up stuff for nativity in church. I expect a lot of churches do, but otherwise, just ask parents to put a tea towel on their children's heads, as Sammy already mentioned, and it's fine. When it does happen, I say, can you bring your child dressed as a character from the nativity? There's always somebody who brings their child dressed as an elf or a reindeer. And I have to stop myself twitching, but at the same time, just let it go. It's not important. People remember what you do. They remember the welcome. And nobody likes to be judged, basically. So we then have that, and we go into the Abbey, and it's quite predictable. It's very, very normal. And the week after that, we have our secular Christmas party, which I strongly recommend, if you have the budget, get someone else in to do it for you. It's by that point, I think most of us are shattered and just kind of really need to not think about something. In terms of resources that I use, I have here, which you cannot see, a copy of The Christmas Book by Dick Bruner. Does anybody remember that from the 1970s? No? Oh, well, okay. See if you can, maybe you can find pictures. Yes, it's beautiful, isn't it, Joanne? It's just lovely. And it tells the story in a very simple and accessible way. What it does not do very well is representation. And when I say representation, what I mean is ethnic and racial representation. It does have non-white kings. However, that's all. It is, hold on, I'm just going to come back to that in a minute. It is really, really important, even if the context in which you're running a toddler group is completely white people, representation of other races and other shades of skin is really, really important. And it's not too hard. And we must do it. It's crucial. Yes, they are very easy to draw. They are so easy to draw for displays. I recommend that. The other thing that I'm doing with slightly older children in year R is Diddy Disciples. Have you come across, give me a wave if you've come across Diddy Disciples materials. Yes. When you first get the book and you look at it, it just looks kind of a bit overwhelming and thick and like a bit of a maze. I have got about 50 sticky page markers on it to help me navigate it, but it's well worth doing. And Sharon Morton Mumby, who wrote it, has found some really creative but simple ways of sharing all sorts of stories, and the Christmas stories are no exception. I'm almost done, but before I stop talking, the thing that I would really like to say is that although there are lots and lots of different ways and different things we can do, everybody knows their own context. Everybody knows how likely their volunteers are to be able to find extra time to do this or that. They know what kind of church their church is, whether it does have, like, for instance, Romsey Abbey is involved in all sorts of secular Christmas stuff in Romsey as well. So that's something to bear in mind. But you know your context really well. You've also done this before, and you know the story, and have faith in God and trust yourself, because you don't need to reinvent the wheel. The story is a story. It's pretty timeless. We can dig into it in different ways as adults, but you are almost definitely doing a good job already. And that's me. That's pretty much all I've got to say, Sammy, with my dog on my head in my picture. So if we can return to questions in the chat. Now, yes, the Christmas book by Dick Bruner. It's beautiful. And okay, I wonder whether anyone has got any wisdom to speak to Charlotte's question. How do you approach birth stories when some parents have experienced loss? Also, what do we say for those parents who have ambivalent birth stories, for instance, adoption? And it's a really, really good, valid point.
I know Danny from Gloucester had put a suggestion in the chat about, the day I became a mummy or daddy. So it just broadens it out a little bit. I think sometimes what we call our projects, our top lines, are different, aren't they, to the language we would actually use when we're in the room with parents and the children themselves. Thank you, Rhiannon, and thank you everyone who's contributed. Sometimes we never know, do we, the journey that will go on and what will come up in a conversation. So we're needing to wrap up very shortly. I'm going to hand over to Rachel, who is going to take you into your final breakout room to distill some of the things that we've been talking about today.
Fabulous. It would be amazing if we're just going to do like a quick 5 minutes in breakout. I realise we've actually shared a lot, so it's been very deep, which again just emphasises what an amazing ministry you all have, because you are dealing with people in all different walks of life. Who have begun this parenting journey, and for some it's been a struggle to get there, and for some it's been very easy to get there, but it's just been wonderful to hear all those different things. So thank you so much for sharing, and we want you just to pop into breakout groups now. Is there one thing you're going to take away? Just one thing, quick fire around your group. What one thing will you take away from today's webinar? And then as we come back in, we're going to pop that in the chat. Thanks, Steph. Could you send us to our breakout rooms, please? It's been great. Thank you. We had an amazing time in our group. Just the little things. I think one of the things that we've highlighted, and you've done it brilliantly, which wasn't even, I love it, a live webinar where you've highlighted beautifully as a group that when we present the Christmas story, all the different needs, and this year more than ever, we are going to have to recognise that people have had actually quite a tough year. People who maybe have given birth during the pandemic. I know many of my friends who've done it have found it really hard and very isolating, as well as people who've struggled with miscarriages, all these things. So important that actually we look at the nitty gritty, if you like, of the story that actually tells us how much Jesus is coming into our broken world, not our sorted world, which leads me on to just to say again that as Hope, we have created Jesus to the Rescue little book. So we'll deal with that in a minute. Is there anything that you want to just pop in the chat that I can see quickly of what your highlight you're taking away? I think that number one is that, thank you, Kat, thank you everyone, just for that the rawness of the Christmas story, and that we need to present it in a way that allows people to bring who they really are, particularly this year. So that's it. I can see that's in group 5 as well. It needs to be done sensitively. And that's it, I guess, knowing your group. And I was thinking how amazing toddler groups are, creating a culture and a space, which I'm sure many of you do, where people can be who they really are and bring what's really happening in their lives. And what a ministry that is. And I know that when the toddler groups disappeared in the pandemic, some of my friends reporting to me how much they lost, because there was not that safe place in the community where they could go. There wasn't that space of support. So I think that's really, really good. I love the reverse preparation. This is coming from Jenny. Give them a box to add something for food bank each day. Isn't that lovely for someone else's family Christmas? More people than ever will be facing hardship this year because of the financial crisis that is more acute than ever. So just being able to support families and allowing people to be a part of that. I've always found that sometimes, particularly helping non-Christians really want to bless others just as much as Christians do. And so doing something like that where they can feel part of the solution will really bless them this year. That's nice. A friend in our toddler group has suggested that we light a candle to mark the losses within the group. So again, what can you do sensitively? And loving the loo rolls. Well done, Charlotte, for bringing those back out. I love the chat that's talked all about loo rolls. Are loo rolls something we can use or not? Well, I think we've concluded they are. So that's fabulous. Use your loo roll inners with confidence. So that's fantastic. I really like that idea because it makes it, do you know what? It makes it cheap and sustainable. Loo roll inners are even recyclable, aren't they? So that's got to be good as well. Green answers as well. Anything else in the chat that anyone else wants to just pop in whilst we're here? Oh yeah, Operation Christmas Child boxes. Another great way to get your community involved. That's a lovely idea. I remember when in my sister's toddler group, they did those. They just had a whole living room full of like different boxes and toothbrushes and goodness knows what. And I just know that can be a real blessing. I know other places that take something similar, like a women's hostel that I worked with. We used to ask churches to provide Christmas gifts for the whole women's hostel. So if you've got like a hostel near you, it might be, again, food bank. Chris, I'm sure lots of you are doing this. Alongside the food bank, some of those families might need Christmas presents. That might be something you could also do. Thank you. Really, really good. So, Sammy, I'd like to just hand over to Sammy to give you just a little bit of, again, a taster on what we have got in store this Christmas. Sammy, over to you.
Thank you, Rachel, and thank you, everyone, for your amazing ideas and resources. That is one of our key aims of Talking Toddlers. It's to be a resource and a support to you. But I'm reminded of something that I learned when I was a teacher, that any resource is only as good as how it's used. And I think what I'm taking away from this webinar is we're kind of giving you ideas at a top line. But as Rhiannon said, it's about knowing your context. You know what will work and how it will best work in your context. And that's probably the line we walk to handle all those sensitivities. One resource I want to share with you today is Jesus to the Rescue. If you were here in September, and if you were here at the start, you'll have seen the animation for God Washes the World. This is our God's Big Story series aimed at under 5s, using the Happy Land characters, the Happy Land toys from the Early Learning Centre. We're telling familiar Bible stories. And Jesus to the Rescue is our Christmas story. And it's intentionally doesn't look typically Christmassy. What we've done here is tell the traditional Christmas story within the lens of this idea of, well, what part does this play in the big story of the Bible? And actually, this is where Jesus is sent by God to rescue and fix once and for all the world that was broken, that got washed in the story of Noah, that had rules given to it in the story of Moses. I've got to write that one yet. You know, that God sent his messengers, and in the end, none of that worked. He had to send himself. And that's what Jesus to the rescue tells. Our key workers, our NHS heroes have been very much uppermost in our minds over the last 18 months. So there is a little bit of a nod to them, but that's not why we've used it. We've used it because it's a really helpful lens to explain why God sent Jesus into the world. Jesus is better than the best police officer ever, rather, at showing us right from wrong, better than the best doctor or nurse at making people better. And so hopefully, we hope there's lots of opportunities here for children to engage in the story. The book is out now. It's available from our shop. The animation that you saw the little promo of at the beginning, the full animation will be free to download from our website by next week. And there are toddler group resources and play ideas and free downloadable colouring sheets as well. We would love you to use Jesus to the rescue with your toddler groups this Christmas. We have priced it at £1 if you buy in bulk, but if ever money is a problem, talk to us, because our heart is to resource you and for this to get out to the families that we know we want to share the Christmas story with. Drop me an email if you'd like to know more. Always happy to chat.
Brilliant. And I'd just love to pick up off the back of what Sammy said and say that another amazing resource from Hope that I can share, because I've used it personally, is the £1 Mark's Gospel, which I don't have a copy to show. Somebody on the Hope team might have, but I bought them a couple of Christmases ago. Like I said, £1 each. They're a beautiful A5 matte finish and brilliant to just buy some. There we go. Rachel and Sammy are showing it in sync. But just to say, as I bought them to give out to families, to give even alongside Christmas presents, they're a beautiful presentation of Mark's Gospel. So why not think of how you could spend that bit of extra budget and put it in the hands of those families that you connect with, if that serves you well this Christmas as well. From an EA perspective, just two things to drop onto your radar. One is that if in your church, your children's ministry spans into your youth ministry as well, we as EA and Hope and Urban Saints, the Church of England, numerous others in partnership, are going into our 6th year of the Youth Evangelism Conference, which will take place on Saturday, March the 5th next year. You might want to store that for yourselves or pass on to those volunteers or youth workers in your church. Saturday, March the 5th, the Youth Evangelism Conference will take place in Cambridge, in Manchester and in Perth, but also be streamed online. The heart of the Youth Evangelism Conference is for leaders. It's for your youth work volunteers, your paid youth workers, your church leaders and parents. And it's basically looking at, also I would add into that, emerging leaders. If you've got some young teenagers that are edging into actually serving themselves, the conference is really looking at how do we keep evangelism high on the agenda when it comes to young people and peer-to-peer evangelism. So I'd love to just put that on your radar, and the link will go in the chat. It's there's an early bird booking out now. We'd love you to book in or pass it on, and that's the yek.uk. Just secondly, so we have a host of resources too at the Evangelical Alliance to serve you in amongst the COVID complexities of reevaluating how we do church in terms of our children's ministry, our youth ministry, broader evangelism, discipleship and way beyond. And a brilliant resource I'd put on your radar is Reset and Reflect, that can be found on eauk.org, just in that ongoing dialogue of, God, what was it all about, COVID? How are you restructuring and helping us to reimagine what church really needs to be? So much that we're involved with our children, youth and families, but also beyond that. So if that serves you, do take a look at eauk.org. But just as we come to close, I think our time is up. On behalf of Sammy and Rachel and myself, we just want to say a massive thank you. Also, just two things to say. One is to highlight for you the next Talking Toddlers webinar, which will take place on Friday, the 18th of March, same time, 10 a.m. till 11:30. And if you were with us last time, you'll recall that we did do a little poll as to what would work best. We're going to stick with our Friday mornings, but what came out of the content and the theme that you'd like to look at was around faith development. And so we'll be focusing, given that it's middle of March, we'll be looking ahead to Easter, but really weaving in actually how can we really embrace that whole area of faith development amongst our toddlers, the carers that come with them, and really make an impact in that area. So that's the next session on the 18th of March. I'm going to hand back to Rachel, who's got one final thing to flag up for us and will lead us into close this morning. Rachel.
Fabulous. We'd just like to mention our Christmas magazine is out with Hope, 10p a copy. It's got amazing stories. It looks a bit like, Bella or Take a Break. So if you want to pop that in when you're giving a present to the children, why not give a present to the mum? And it's just got, here we are, lovely Sally Phillips on the front cover. It's just got beautiful stories in there of celebrities who follow and know Jesus. And it's a very gentle, very, very gentle read. So you read mostly about the celebrity and it talks about their faith and helps them through. So if you've got, they're just 10p a copy. We'd love you to get hold of some of those. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We wish you a happy Christmas. Sammy's putting a hand up. Sammy.
Just another thing to pick up from last time, you might remember we had the amazing Martha from Open the Book with us, the Bible Society, and lots of you have signed up for their new Good News Family Bible, and you might be wondering where it is. So a message from Martha. She says it's on its way. You should get it next week. They've had them in stock for a while, but it's the lorry drivers they've been short of to deliver it. So you should get it next week in plenty of time for Christmas, we hope. Thank you. Sorry, Rachel, back to you.
That's fine. Sorry, all I was going to say was, why don't we just pray over each other, over ourselves as we go and wrap up our time together and pray that this Christmas will be massively impactful for the kingdom. So let's pray together. Lord, we just thank you for this time together. Thank you for the multitude of great ideas and resources and people that you have put in our hearts and minds, both today and in the ministries that we're a part of. Lord, I just pray for myself, for our friends here gathered together. Thank you that we are in this together. Thank you that we partner with you to serve and seek and see kingdom growth. We pray, Lord, that this Christmas time and the lead up, Lord, in all these many events and activities, both online and in person, reaching out to the community and in our churches, we pray, Holy Spirit, would they be touched by your presence, Lord? Would people come through our doors, meet with us online, whatever it will be, and would they have a really tangible sense of you and hear just absolute truth upon truth through this gospel message and through the story of Christmas. So, Lord, I pray that as we go from here, would you solidify in our hearts and minds those ideas which we've heard, which may come to great fruition and touch people's lives. But I pray for energy, for resource, for wisdom, for balance, for rest, for each of my friends here. Would we really know your guidance as we approach this Advent and Christmas season? So go with us, I pray. May it be a fruitful or restful rest of the day and into the weekend. And thank you that we don't go it alone, because as we said at the beginning, it's not by might or by our power, but it's through your Spirit. So we just put ourselves in your hands and pray that we would see great things come out of this Christmas time as many hear of your truth and are drawn closer into an encounter with you. In your name I ask, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Bless you all. Thank you so much for your time in joining us. We will send out both the recording, the list of the resources from the chat. All of that will come out to email from Steph to you within the next week or so. So do feel free to share it on, get people to watch the recording. Be in touch with us if you have any feedback. But until we see you again, hopefully on the 18th of March, as Rachel said, have a wonderful Christmas and we'll see you the other side. Take care. Thank you again for joining us. God bless. Bye for now.